Okay, there we go. So as I explained in the first video, that should be done processing and uploaded by now. I had broached the subject that that I had ran some PTSD type tests and talked about how, there was a lot of stuff from my childhood, how I was targeted for my autism, all that stuff. And I never wanted to think that I would do these videos, like, talk about my childhood and talk about all these things that, like, not only are super personal, but that I didn't feel I needed to share with you guys because I feel like it would come back to bite me later on down the road. But I also feel like in so many different things, especially at the beginning of this year when you guys saw these vlogs to New Orleans for WWE WrestleMania week, just something clicked. Something clicked a couple of months after April. And I started seriously looking into, PTSD and many different forms of PTSD. I don't know why. I think because I've started to more or less follow the power of prayer and stuff. I've started getting back in touch, with most, if not the majority of my Southern Baptist roots, that are traced from my mom's side of the family. And so one day, I hate getting religious, but I'm just going to throw it out there. One day I just prayed. I said, Lord, give me a sign to show me why I'm so miserable. Why, after all these cool big events in my life, all these things that are meant to be fun, to be camaraderie among my friends and my family and other people, why I'm always, craving more of that. Why am I not happy? And it's because subtly I've been programmed to not always enjoy or be happy the majority of my life because I always was expected to be disappointed. And that stemmed from the fact that I grew up with a father, ex-military father at that, a father that was very controlling, very manipulative, didn't really look at his son as his son, as his son per se. Like, I'm not saying my father doesn't love me, but I don't think he loved me as much as a father should. And my father more or less disciplined me out of feeling better for himself than he did, being an actual man, like teaching me to be a man. And he was very verbally abusive towards me. He was verbally abusive towards my mother. Always acted like he was embarrassed by me whenever I was around his friends. Same thing, with other members of my family. And I've come to realize that my dad and his side of the family are not going to change. They come from a very prideful Southern family. They believe that even if they're wrong, they're right kind of mentality, which is just plain ignorant and stupid, but that's besides the point. And because I was also targeted because of my autism by a lot of other people, like not just schoolyard bullying, but even teachers and parents, they didn't like me because I would always be rebellious, because I always felt like people just picked on me just because I was special needs. And there were some times where some teachers were low-key malicious or tried to make me feel stupid and didn't like that I actually was smarter than them. Not in an arrogant way, but just would correct them on stuff that, hey, I don't think that lesson's correct. So it was the mentality of people trying to dumbify me, because in their mind, I was just a stereotypical autistic kid. I didn't know anything. I was just as low as the low-functioning kids. And I hated that. I always hated that. And in retrospect, all the way up until I moved to Maryland and went to high school, that I was basically babied all the way through junior high. Like, I never really had much of a challenge, and I was kind of handed everything on a silver platter. And in retrospect, I'm glad that when I moved to Maryland and I got to high school, they're like, yeah, we're going to stop this crap right away because you don't need an aide. You're functioning enough that you can get this stuff, done on your own. And I didn't like it at first because I was used to having everything. But now that experience in high school has somewhat driven me to try to achieve stuff on my own, the need for personal gratification. The problem is, I also want gratification from other people because, I've worked so hard. I feel like I've been through so much in my life that, I deserved this, and I made my whole identity around that. And the sad part about it, guys, is that when you develop this identity of you're bigger than everybody else because of the trauma that you've been through, that doesn't actually help you, and it doesn't help the other people that are in the same situation as you. It actually hurts them because you're becoming a toxic person by proxy by letting all of that stuff stay with you rather than this is the funny thing about the human psyche. This is the funny thing about all of us. All the bad stuff that has ever happened to us, we compartmentalize it. We don't deal with it. And I think that's the key problem for a lot of people, mental health wise. And it's not just people with PTSD, but people with depression. And I'm not saying it's the cure-all, be-all. I'm not saying it's an easy road. But in my personal opinion, mine only, I'm not an expert. This is just one man's perspective. By compartmentalizing the things that traumatized you, and not, even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if it makes you break down, even if it makes you cringe, the more you repeat to yourself and self-care yourself. Give you an example. I've always wanted to beat the crap out of every dad that ever yells at their kid. Like, that would trigger me. And I would want to confront the fathers very aggressively. One of the biggest things that they say, especially for children that grew up with an aggressive father, that developed, childhood PTSD, they call it childhood PTSD, is to look at that situation. Force yourself to look at that situation if you can, as you start getting more comfortable, and you say, that's not me anymore. That's not my situation. And it's not just out of courtesy, because of the kids actually being bad, but it's the mental mindset of reminding myself, okay, I'm 30 years old, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm not weak anymore. People can't bully me like they used to. It's like that part is over and done with. And it sounds simple, but every day, every moment of the day, I have to repeat that to myself. Like on a constant. Because if I don't drill it into my own head, and I don't say it when the situation arises, then I'm opening the door to relapse into going back to those toxic behaviors. And when you unpack all that emotional baggage, guys, you feel so much better about yourself. You start to feel more confident. You start to say, you know what? I may not be where I want to be, but I'm where I need to be. And so many more things that you never dealt with, that you just packed away. You thought, this is over. I won't be able to deal with this. I shouldn't have to actually deal with it, emotionally, mentally. I got to a point where I finally where even I had enough, and I was like, I need answers, and I found them, and I've been making progress ever since, guys. So all I'm saying is just have a little bit of due diligence, have a little bit of patience, and take care of yourselves and take care of the people around you, because you never know. And it sounds corny, but you never know if you will truly be the hand that helps people, out of the darkness, like out of the ruts of their own minds. So be kind, guys, because the world itself is chaos. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. I love you guys. Have a good one.